this week's show, we'll talk about the Kubica accident. We'll talk about Grand Am and ALMS schedules, and do the holes in their schedules affect fan loyalty? And then we'll wrap the show up with the GM Cadillac and their effort in World Challenge. We'll get a chance to talk to their lead driver, Andy Pilgrim. Welcome to the Insider Report. Welcome to another episode of The Insiders. Here I have with me my co-hosts, Peter Keene, Bill Wood, and our driver analyst again for this week is Andy Pilgrim. Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
How you doing? So in the show opener, I mentioned what our topics are going to be, and we're going to jump right into our first topic, which is the Kubica accident. And you know, we're all here, you know, wishing Robert a speedy recovery. You know, it sounds like it was a pretty horrific accident. Bill, you've been following this story pretty closely, and you're the one who actually made me aware of it first. What have you heard so far? Well,
I've heard that it was a terrible accident, obviously, but motorsports is a very dangerous occupation. Several things that I have problems with European rallying, and it's a different mindset in Europe than it is in the United States about liabilities and people that you know, where they stand on the road. And from what I understand, the barrier, the Armco that we call it, on the side of the road had a break in it, and it didn't have the little cap on the end to mitigate the problems of just the solid Armco, and that's what happened. The Armco pierced the car. And now the co-driver is talking about they've got to come up with something to protect the drivers, but short of creating a tank, I don't know what they could possibly do. It's just a terrible accident, and you know, done to a very nice man, from what I understand.
Now, Andy, I believe you said you've actually been speaking to a few people over in Europe, some close ties that you have. What have you heard?
Yeah, one of the engineers that I speak to over at Renault Lotus has been giving me a little bit of background information, and exactly what Bill said is perfectly correct. The accident was, as we say, it's just circumstances and chance, and everything happens in the wrong way at the wrong time. The barrier pierced the car. As we know, the surgeons have worked on him tremendously, like I think 24 hours straight, to try and make sure. Two teams of surgeons worked on him to make sure his hand got reattached. As we last know, the hand, there's going to be quite a few more days until they know for sure if everything's good there. But what can you say? I mean, the thing is, it happens. It's just a really, really bad situation for a phenomenal driver.
Some other things happened that really caused the problem where it happened on the road. They got first aid there quickly, but one of the ambulances didn't have the jaws of life to cut him out of the car. They had to move the car down the road to some place where the helicopter could land to even fly him away. So it was just a confluence of things that you know, helped to make this just a bad tragedy even worse.
As I mentioned, you know, we all, you know, wish him a speedy recovery, but I think this also opens up another question, which Bill and I, you know, we spoke about offline here, is that, you know, he's the lead driver pretty much for the Renault team, and, you know, drivers who are already under contract, you know, should they be allowed to drive other forms of motorsports while they're under, you know, premier contracts, if you will?
If you want me to speak to that, Errol, the bottom line there is I think they have to be allowed to do what they want to do. I think in my contracts I have the provisions that if I do injure myself, whether it's riding motorcycles or certain things like that, I enjoy riding motorcycles, and I've had discussions with certain teams, and certain contracts through the years said that I couldn't skydive, I couldn't do plane aerobatics, but it never really stops you doing other types of motorsports. People understand we love to do that, and we're not going to stop doing that. And you know, if you paid enough money, I guess you can trap somebody into not doing these things. But as long as it's not sponsor conflicts, most of the time they allow us to do certain things. The only things I've had for sure that I know is aerobatics in planes and parachute jumping.
Well, I can understand that, you're in motorsports and want to keep your skills honed, but I think being able to maybe hone those skills in something similar to what you are participating in, I don't know that open wheel racing and rally have, a tremendous amount of connection there in synergy, other than the fact that they are motorsports and, we're all motorheads at our core. But, does this help him in the long run? And therefore, if it's not helping him, does it distract him?
Well, the boss of the Renault team put it perfectly, where they want their drivers to be happy, and that's what Kubica loved to do, and that's what made him happy. So they were willing to put up with this because it made him a more a functional employee. Those are the wrong words, but it made him happy, and that's what they wanted from their driver.
Well, do you think after this that there's going to be a change in that policy?
No, as long as he's happy.
No.
And Andy, you would know this. If you're not happy, you're not going to give your best performance.
Well, that was exactly my point. That was exactly my point. You have to have certain things in your life that you do. You take risks. I mean, seriously, guys, there's a risk crossing the street. We understand that. But I don't believe that you can dictate what the guys are going to do to the extent that it stops them, as you say, having fun in their lives within reason.
Gotcha.
Right, and I mean, Andy, don't you? I mean, you always have to ask permission if you go to another team, right? Yes. I mean, you ask.
Yes.
Essentially, is it okay?
Absolutely.
And then secondly, I mean, this brings to mind. You're not going to stop Tony Stewart from getting in a dirt car or punching guys out in Australia. What are you going to do there? And it also brings up like when Junior was in the Corvette and the Corvette caught fire. NASCAR thought the AMLS is trying to burn up their franchise. So I don't think you'll see Junior in a Corvette anymore, but I mean, that's what these guys do. They're race car drivers. They're, they want to be out doing this thrill-seeking stuff.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, gentlemen, we obviously will be paying attention to Robert's recovery and wishing him well. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Am and ALMS. We'll be right back.